Do tofu houses actually exist in China? Well, the answer is yes, and stay tuned, I'll tell you why. Yes, sirree. I'm not freaking blind, guys. It's Gweilo style. I think it's Thursday. You could die.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch. Geez, you know? Oh yeah, because it goes on and on and on. For all you haters, there's something to chew on for the next couple of... Welcome back to the Gweilo 60 channel. You see, about 5 or 6 years ago, Wei Fong and I were thinking maybe we'd change from Hojilu to the center of the city. So we looked at a bunch of places, and everything was about the same price, except for this one building. And I'll put a couple clips of it in here so you can see what I'm talking about. This one building was about half price compared to all of the other apartment buildings in this area of the city. So we started asking questions because the old spidey sense was tingling type thing, eh? And the reason why I'm going here, you gotta love the background with the Landong area. But up here, I'll show you. It's Nanhu Lake, and you can see all of the apartment buildings around, and you'll quite quickly notice that they are not tofu buildings. Anyway, back to the story. So we started asking questions about the building, and the elevator wasn't working. That was a red flag right there. But it was because the cement wasn't strong enough to support an elevator in that building. Okay, so we still went and took a look at the apartment. It's a big apartment. It was like 150 square meters, and I think it was only about 700, maybe 650,000 RMB, which is quite cheap type thing. Anyway, you could we soon noticed that you could take your fingernail and the cement on the walls would just sort of crumble off. And this is due to, well, a couple of different things. The first thing is unscrupulous business people, corrupt construction companies, and they would skimp on the cement. Yes, they would. And then back in the 80s, and these are older places. Back in the 1980s, early 90s, maybe even late 70s, there was a lot of corruption in government here in China. Municipal government, provincial government, federal government, the whole 9 yards. But those days are over. That's China back then. The China of today is a lot different, and I'll explain this in layman terms so we can all understand it. If you build a building not up to code, city engineer that's there to inspect will come along, check your work at certain stages, just like in any other country, and if it's not up to spec, construction stops, the company goes belly up, and that's just the way it is. And the reason I know this is a good friend of mine is an actual inspector for the city of Nanning, and that's what he does. He's an engineer. That's all he does, is he inspects buildings as they're being built, and they have to be up to spec. And you do see the odd building that's half built here or a quarter built there, and the reason for that is that construction was stopped on that building because it wasn't up to spec. It's very important when you get buildings, you see my background here, when you get buildings that are 30, 40, 50, 60, back in this area, just a little bit further back, you get buildings that are over 100 stories high. And if you don't have construction proper in those buildings, you're going to have a lot of problems. You see, we are sort of in an earthquake little zone here too. They've never had a really big one, but they've had shakers and stuff like that. So you got to keep that in mind too. But the Chinese government is very strict on building codes of buildings here in China. Probably more strict than anywhere else I've ever seen. And they're not building tofu buildings anymore. See, that's something, as I say, of the past, but you hear this in the news, you hear it in comments, you hear it from uneducated fools that either have never been to China or haven't been to China in a long, long time. And they think that it's the same way as it was 30, 40 years ago. China is not that same country. That country was rice farmers and fishermen, and that China no longer exists. Now it's the China of the future. Now it's the China of high-rise, big buildings. And you see, this isn't even the newest area. This is the second newest area of Nanning. You get over to Wuxian area, it's a smart city. It's all high-rises. It's all black glass outsides of the buildings. It's all state-of-the-art subways and road systems, and you know what I mean? Like, everything is built perfect here. It's just one of those things. And when you get a background like this, and you see the high-rises, and you see the high-rises, and you see the high-rises, you see the one back over there, that's over 100 stories high, the tall one. And you see the high-rises, and you see the high-rises, and that's basically all you see in China, because they don't build out, they build up. So if construction isn't proper, well, then everything falls apart. If a construction company today tries to pull a wool over an inspector's eyes, or if there's a corrupt inspector and they get caught, they go to jail. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. People in China, there's not a lot to invest your money into, and they were using housing for investment, speculation, and the first thing you learn in China is don't be getting between a Chinese person and their money. And if they're trying to sell a tofu house to you, a construction company, soon that information gets out into the general public. Not only is that construction company null and void, but the people that are running it are in jail. If there's a corrupt inspector now and gets caught, that corrupt inspector goes to jail. If you are a big politician in China and you get caught doing something wrong, you go to jail. See, here they actually have punishment for politicians and government workers for doing things that aren't right, that are against the law. It's not like in a place like Canada, the United States, that you can get a Nancy Pelosi that makes $200,000 a year and she's got $200 million in the bank. Why? Because she's crooked. It's like, and there's a lot of politicians in the States that are the same thing. I watched a couple of shows on this just recently, and so it's okay to be corrupt in the United States. And a politician. It's okay to be a politician, be corrupt in the UK or Canada, but if you try to do that here in China, you go to jail and you forfeit all your money and stuff like that too. So, you know, there's a big deterrent there. So the idea of tofu houses in China, yes, they did exist, and some of them actually are still there. Most of them have been torn down and replaced with good housing. But the one that I'm showing at the beginning of this video, that one's still standing. I think it's because it's like 25 stories high, and when you take off a building here, when a construction company comes and takes off a building here, they have to house, they have to give apartments to everybody that's in there already. So it's probably not financially feasible to put up a high-rise, and there's not a lot of room in that little area, so you could only put up one building. It's not like you could you know, take the land and put up 4 or 5 buildings where one building was. So there's a financial constraint on this one building being taken down, but sooner or later it's going to be condemned, because sooner or later it'll be deemed unsafe. I don't know why it hasn't already. But I noticed that there was people going in and out of it. None of them had a smile on their face. They know that they've been burnt. They know that they're not going to be able to sell their properties because they're not worth anything, because it's a tofu building. But so the answer to the question, is there tofu buildings here in China? The answer is yes. But they're the older buildings that were done by corrupt construction companies, and they were signed off by probably corrupt inspectors, and all of that is 20, 30, 40 years in the past, And that doesn't happen anymore. So when you hear people making comments about tofu buildings in China, keep in mind that, yeah, it was true at one time, but that China no longer exists. The China that exists now is what you saw in the background of this video. And I'm telling you, like, even this building here with the circle on the roof there, that's a 101-story building. Like, seriously. And we go for dim sum up there every once in a while. Yeah, right at the top, and it's a little expensive, but the food is good, and the view is even better. You know what I mean? So those are the days gone by in China. It's the same as you know, looking at the United States and saying slavery is still legal in the United States, or that Native children in Canada are still going to residential schools, or, you know, that's the past. That's not the reality of today. So I don't know why the Western world keeps dredging up the past of China and saying, look, this is what China is, this is what China is, this is what China is, when it's not what this is what China is, this is what China was. And it's sad that they can't get their head around the idea that China has actually changed and morphed into an amazing country well into the future as compared to the United States, Canada, or any of the G7 countries. They have infrastructure. They have, well, they have this. And that's another video from Gweilo 60. If you like this video, as always, like, comment, subscribe, push that share button, don't forget to resubscribe, hit the bell, and yes, it's a little noisy out here, but that is China, and that's China today. Anyway, until next time, peace out. Bye now. Thanks for watching. Bye now.